This is an overview of the session fall 2024, weeks 3 and 4, and I'm currently over at the floor area. This setup is listed the same for all age groups, but has some different options for each age. Note that our stations on floor have to be kind of close in the middle to allow warm-up space on either side. But if you realize as you're starting stations, everything's close, it's okay to push things over to the side and use that space more if we're getting in traffic jams. Or I kind of showed here where I have dots kind of on the outer rim of those stations then. So although the stations are close together, we can tell kids to wait on the outside. And it's also a great practice to ask kids specifically how to walk back to stations. So for example, where this purple dot is, we can teach the station during directions and then say on this one, then we go find the blue line and walk all the way back till we get to the purple dot. That will make sure then that they don't go near the cartwheel. Then if they do run back on the incorrect side, you can say, remember, we talked about that you go on the blue line. Same for over on the beam. They can go down the beam and then you can give the direction, walk on the white line until you get to the yellow dot and wait. So giving that kind of effort during directions gives you something to call back to. So when that chaos is happening later in class, you can't just say, don't do that to everybody if you didn't tell them what to do. But if you did tell them where to walk, then you can reference back to what they were asked to do. And naturally, some of the kids will do it, and that will hopefully help lead the other kids to do it correctly. So covering the stations, this is where we're winding up 2 panel mats, and the goal is a pop-up. So what we want them to try to be able to do is hit the springboard tight enough that they can land up on the red block with a straight body and straight legs versus doing more of a tuck jump up. Then we're going to instruct them to walk to the end of the red mat, straddle jump, stick, finish, soldier. I would say main focus on this station would be stick, finish, soldier. Then after that, I would say trying to make sure they know the words run, hurdle, and knowing that that means jumping from 1 foot to 2 feet on the springboard. And then also introducing them to straddle, where our legs open shut out to the sides. So remember, there is so much to teach on every station. And once kids get down kind of the top priority, then you want to try and meet them where they're at and move to the next thing and move to the next thing, so that kids who are struggling are feeling taught by you focusing on the thing they can't do yet, and then kids who are excelling are feeling taught because you're giving them the next thing to focus on. The next station is with the green dot and the little panel mat. This is where we're teaching a cartwheel or a puddle jumper. This varies a lot for all kids, kind of regardless of age, because you might get older kids that don't really know how to do a cartwheel, and then we need to introduce them to the puddle jumper. And then you might have some younger kids who can do a cartwheel, and that's where we want this mat on this blue line so we can ask them to be starting on it and finishing on it, thinking it like a beam cartwheel if they're ready to do that. And I will move the puddle jumper cartwheel video up in this playlist so you can watch more about how to help kids learn those different steps. Then here is the big panel mat where they'll be practicing a bridge. So we want them to start laying already on the mat and then scooch back to the edge and let their head go here and their hands go here and bend their knees and push their tummy up to the ceiling. So I purposely had us do our backward roll in this starting position off a panel mat last time so that we could do our bridge starting from this position this time. And then that you could also teach the two opposites, that when you're doing a backward roll, that we're tucking, that we're rounding our body, and that we're rolling, and that when we do a bridge, then we're pushing our body arched the other direction. I thought that could also help too if some kids are unable to attempt a bridge on their own. You could instruct them to continue to practice their backward roll if they just can't do it. And then remember, the focus here is doing a bridge by themselves. So it does not make sense for us to sit here and spot kids on kickovers who cannot hold a bridge, because we know that they cannot then do a kickover by themselves either. So I think we should show a bridge holding a foot up, and then show a kickover. Hopefully it would be best probably if there was a coach that could do that and show each of those 3 things, and then try to figure out which ones kids can do on their own. Then if a kid is holding a bridge, can hold their foot up, I think it'd be great to come over and spot them on one and then go. If you want to try that again by yourself, you can. Otherwise, you can keep holding your foot up in the air and then letting them try, because it's a pretty safe, low to the ground thing to try. But we also don't want to get ourselves stuck at this station the whole time and feeling like we need to spot kids who really don't need to be spotted. And so what helps on the first week of something like this is that you're really not spotting anyone, or you're only spotting the people who are really in need of whichever step that they're on. And then again, I put the dot on the outside of the station so that they're not over there getting kicked by cartwheel. Then here we're adding on to those donkey kicks. So last time we started on the trampoline. Now for the younger kids, we start 2 feet here and jump 2 feet and then 2 feet donkey kick. And the older kids, you'd want to start further back on the mat, and that's where you'd have them go step, hurdle, donkey kick, donkey kick. So that's that introduction to kind of hitting that springboard, or in this case mini trampoline, and then kind of turning upside down after that. And also would be a great one, again, if a coach who can jump to a handstand can really show what that looks like. I think that helps the kids understand what they're trying to do, because otherwise some kids feel kind of bored, like, I don't know why I'm doing this super low weird tuck jump on this trampoline. And I think it's good for the parents to see too what the kids have the opportunity to be working on. Whether or not they can do that or not is a whole different story. And then having a dot and then asking them to not come towards the bridge, but to walk around this direction and then back to the blue dot. And then with the laser beam for the younger groups, we're working on long jump. So really bravely, boldly jumping across the beam and not landing with their feet turned sideways. And then the older kids are trying a jump on one leg. So tell them to start with their favorite one first. And if they're really mastering that they can jump and stop on that one foot without touching the floor, then say, hey, you should try that on your other foot and see if you can do it. But because this beam is so close to the ground, there's going to be a lot of kids who just jump, touch their foot, jump, touch their foot. So you really want to challenge them to hold their other foot up. Kids kind of have to be pretty athletic, but it works for some if you tell them to hold their foot in the air. So like actually reach with their hand down to their foot and kind of hold it like a quad stretch and then jump. That kind of makes them realize when they're putting it on the carpet. But not all kids are even able to jump in that position, but for some it might work. And then just trying to get them to slow down enough. So there might be older kids who are kind of bunny hopping on one foot, going all over the place, might be rolling their ankle and falling down. And it's okay to ask them to jump and stop on 2 feet to start, and then say, okay, that's what we're trying to do, is pause in between each one. Now you should try that on 1 foot. And this will be one that kids will rush on, that if it goes unpaid attention to and uncoached, that they just simply won't pay attention to it. So you have to make sure you're talking about it. And this is a station where I would maybe be physically standing over by another one, but then verbally coaching this one. So talking across the room, but standing next to another one is kind of like coaching 2 things at a time. I might stand over on this white line over here in front of kids for their first turn and do a stick finish soldier with them. And then when somebody's not going, then I can be like, so-and-so over here, good job. And remember that we want to be talking every moment, saying either corrections or compliments. So the beginning of our rotation is for directions. And then after that comes those corrections or compliments. And the kids can feel your effort and they can feel your interest. So the more that you work to talk to them, even if it's just a great job or if it's helping them get better at it, make sure you're making that goal to keep talking the whole rotation and trying to learn their names. It really, really helps when you're trying to verbally coach this station from 40 feet away, if you know their names and can call out their name. Because sometimes I think we think we're verbally coaching to a kid across the room and they might not even know that we're talking to them. So really make that effort during your classes in this 3rd week as you're seeing kids, a second or third time, that you're trying to call more kids by name. This is fall 2024, weeks 3 and 4 in the bars and beam area, and I'm going to go over each age group individually to make sure it's really clear because there's multiple things set up at the same time. So this is the setup for 5 and 6 for 3 pull-ups. So they're going to start standing here, grab the bar. Then they're gonna walk their feet up and rest them so they're kind of in an L hang. And then their goal is to do 3 pull-ups. So working that arm strength to get their chin above the bar before they do their pullover. And the goal is that their feet are resting on the mat, but that they're not walking their feet back and standing on them. So they wanna be lifting their way up and then going back down to that L position. If you have kids who are really strong, you could also have them lift their legs up as they're doing their pull-up. It's not super common, but there is kids out there who can do it. So if it looks really easy, feel free to show them and ask them to do it in that harder fashion. But we're asking them to do 3 and then switch with the front. This is where the 5-6-year-olds are learning jump to front support. I have a video showing how to do this and how to do it with the foam in between your legs to work on their form. So I will add that here, but the goal is that they start here, jump up, jump down, jump up, jump down. And then these mats can be interchanged or the bar can be raised based on the size of the kids. But what we really want them to do is be able to jump up to their hips with straight arms, with straight legs. If they can, they should have straight elbows from when they're on the ground till they jump up. So most kids start this and it looks kind of like a push-up where their arms start bent and go to straight. And it's the next step to be able to do that with straight arms. So that's what you can be asking them for if this looks easy for them. And more than anything, on these 2 stations, these are getting us ready for pullovers, because if they don't know how to bend their arms and hold their chin by the bar, they won't be able to begin their pullover. And then so many kids, we've all witnessed it, run up the wall and kick over the bar, and then they just kind of flop down to their feet on the other side. And then we're teaching them what a front support is, where they need to push up on their hands right away. And so what the goal is that right now they already know what front support is. So by the time we have the 5-6s doing a pullover, we say front support and they know what that means, and they're hopefully not doing a bunch of those pullovers where they just kind of whip over the bar and then kind of flop right down to their feet. Then on this bar, the 5-6s are practicing a monkey flip. So for those of you who are unfamiliar, that's where your hands are on the bar and then you touch your feet to the bar inside your hands and kind of flip your feet over. Then you can also have them try to flip back the other way if they've got it. And some kids can even go back and forth under the bar. But the reason that's important for their pullover is because that's the rotation of going upside down that they need to feel. So this is going upside down with their legs under the bar, and then a pullover is going upside down with their legs over the bar. And these mats are going to stay for all groups, but this mat will move for the other ages. So you might need to find where that is around here and grab it back up there. And if that's still too high for some 5-6s, we might need to problem solve how we can add like another little panel mat or something, because they should be able to flip this way and tap their feet to the mat before they jump back this way. I would say the most common mistake kids make here is to throw their head backwards. So they try to lift their feet up to the bar and they end up kind of arching back and looking back. But if they want to be in a tuck position, then they can't be arched. So we want them to look forwards, then make sure they can see their feet coming up to the bar and that they're not tipping their chin back when they do this one. And you'll have to watch. Some of the youngest kids don't quite understand that if they let go of the bar, they'll fall on their head. So please make sure that you tell the kids that while they're upside down, they can't let go of the bar, because it is kind of a common station for kids to kind of crash down because they don't know when to safely let go. So make sure you take your time with that one, and you will probably have to spot a good number of kids on that for them to be able to do it. And then if you have to leave that station and you can't spot it anymore, you could always say, you should do your spider hang from last week while you're waiting for me. And then they can continue to practice that, because it is a lot of the same initial muscles of lifting your feet up to the bar that they're probably missing to be able to do their monkey flips. So they can keep practicing that. This station is going to be a kneeling kick to handstand. I have another video of us doing this as well that I'll move up in the playlist. It just uses probably a different mat right here. So it's all the same idea, is that we kneel down on this mat, we put our hands here close to the wall, and then we work on trying to kicking our feet up to the wall. So it's that vertical position we want them to be able to kick up to, but it removes the whole start position and reaching down to the ground that some of them don't get, so that they can start with their hands safely planted where they're already supposed to be. And then when we move later in session to where they're start positioning, then we have this to reference to of what your strong straight arms are supposed to feel like. And this is where a lot of kids start too close to the wall, start too far from the wall. So you really have to help them find the right spot. And then remember, the goal is that only their feet touch the wall. So most kids are going to stick their head out and let that slam into the wall. Then they're going to let their butt slam into the wall. Then they're gonna lay on the wall and then slide down the wall onto their head. So make sure that they've seen somebody do this with only their feet touching. So really it's an independent handstand where they then touch the wall afterwards. Because if kids don't know what they're aiming for, they're not gonna magically do it. So a lot of kids lay flat on the wall, their whole back touching, their whole legs touching, and they think they're doing exactly what you asked them to do. And once they can get upside down, what we need to do is be getting them to hold it with only their feet supporting them on the wall. And I think one of the main problems for this is kids kick up too hard and they kind of bounce off the wall. So I end up telling a lot of kids when I'm coaching this to kind of try to kick up slow motion. So they get kneeled down, then they get standing on their feet, and then it's like, okay, raise one foot up in the air. Okay, nice and easy, try to kick the other one up by that one. And then maybe they don't make it to the wall, but at least they're kind of holding a handstand first and will eventually get there. But when kids start slamming into the wall, they start really not liking this station. And if you don't tell them to kick slower or kick easier, they won't know to stop, and then they just won't think they can do it, or they won't like it. And then on this beam, we are walking sideways with the 5-6s. A lot of kids will try to crisscross their feet over, and what we're trying to teach them do is go open, shut, or step together, and that's like a muscle repetition that they need to be practicing and feeling. So I wanted to point out a couple strategies that can help with the medium beam, because for some kids that's the most fun part, and for some classes it's the hardest part for us to get through, because some kids are so tentative that they go so slow across, and kids don't seem like they get a lot of turns. So this is one suggestion, putting a marker part of the way across. So say I'm walking with somebody and they're going sideways and they need my help the whole way. Then I could be saying to the next person, hey Ella, you can get in your straddle sit on the beam. And then once I pass this yellow dot, then I can say, all right, Ella, we passed the yellow dot now. You can stand up and start your turn. And that will allow two kids to be safely walking at the same time at a safe distance, and hopefully help kids get more turns in. So hopefully then you can, be helping this one while this brave one doesn't need help. You can also move this block up to where the yellow is and have them mount and only go halfway across the beam. If that's kind of not fun for them, we want to push them to grow at it. But if it just takes them that long to get across, we can also cut the distance down to make the class run more smoothly. And we can also, on the sideways walk, tell them to face both directions for those who feel confident enough to. And then of course we can always add releve, we can add arms press for those who are ready. And again, with the stick finish soldier, there is nothing like telling a kid, you stuck it, you got it. And if they don't know what that is, they can't do it. And there is nothing like the cheering that happens when a kid learns how to jump off of something and stick it and finish and soldier, and they look like a gymnast. So please make sure that they're doing that. And that also transitions to other places in their life where they're going to be jumping off of things, like at the playground, and telling them that they can safely be landing there. I mean, it really, really is teaching their body to react correctly by bending their knees and keeping their chest straight up and down. So that's also a life skill on top of a gymnastic skill. So we need to make sure that if kids are just jumping off and collapsing down and reaching their hands down right away, that we're coaching that we're saying, remember, when we land, we don't want to reach down to the ground. That could hurt our arms. We want to stand straight up and down. We want our arms straight out in the front. We want our knees bent, and teach them what that's called, so that then if they know what it is, then you can be off at another station and be verbally coaching that one from far away. But again, if they don't know the words, then it doesn't help to be coaching them from far away either. This is weeks 3 for the bars beam area for age 7-8. This is the setup for running pullover. This panel, or this cheese mat, can go front to back to help with different heights. And of course you can always move this bar. You just need to make sure when you do move it that this pin is all the way into that position. Sometimes it gets stuck out a little bit. And then their goal is to stand right here and hold their chin by the bar, and then run and jump their feet and try to pull over. Now what we want to do is, when we're showing, have somebody show it and miss it on purpose, because we want kids to be able to attempt this without somebody just standing there the whole time and see what that feels like. And then make sure they understand that if their arms go all the way straight, they can't make their pullover. So they really need to keep pulling on the bar and keep their arms bent, and they should be looking for their feet. So a lot of them kind of whip their head back and look backwards at the mat, and that actually makes them arch instead of round around the bar like a backward roll. And then for age 7, 8, we are not using that bar. We are using this bar. And this is where you'll want the red block so that they can practice their jump to front support up here, so that they're used to being up on that higher bar. And then that's where they want to learn what 3 casts are and a forward roll dismount. And we want them to be forward rolling with their arms still bent and kind of setting their body down, not doing like a straight arm flip and flop down. Some kids even let go of the bar before their feet are touching and kind of seat drop. So we want to make sure we show them what a forward roll to a bent arm hang looks like so that they're doing that safely. And again, we want them to be learning the terms front support, cast, and dismount. So the goal for ages 7 and up is that at some point this session we're spotting a back hip circle. And when we go to do that, we need them to be able to know what a pullover is, because they have to do one to get on the bar. Then they have to know what a cast is, because they have to do one into their back hip circle. They have to know what front support is, because they have to finish in their front support. And then that they're going to forward roll down to the bar after that. Over here with the cheese mat, we're doing the same station I already described in age 5, 6, and there will be a separate video for that. Then on the medium beam, we are walking backwards, and that's where kids try to shuffle backwards. So we want to make sure that they're walking one foot behind the other foot, and that's the age where you can really explain. Once your friend gets to the yellow dot, the next person can crawl up and start, and that's where you want to have them straddle sit facing this way already, so that they're already ready to walk backwards, and then they'll have to turn around to dismount at the end. And this is the week we're introducing the highest beam to age 7 and 8. So I think having the little bit bigger block will help them feel a little more confident in the beginning, and make sure they straddle sit right there and then tuck their toes up behind them. And then they're going to bear walk. So they actually don't have to stand up all the way to vertical. They're going to keep their hands and feet on the beam. And I think that's a good way to introduce being up there. And I also put the block at like halfway or even a third of the way across the beam, so that they don't have to look at that daunting whole thing, that they can start halfway. And then if you have kids who seem fine, pull the block back. But I think we'll set ourselves up for success if we kind of give them a smaller goal and then increase to it. Notice there's the 8 inches or more of mat to make sure that they have the muscles they need to stay standing. If they jump too far down and don't have the muscles, then it's kind of an automatic fall, and we want them to be learning that stick position. And then remember, a bear walk is coachable. So it's straight legs, and moving their hands and feet at the same time. So that's also a flexibility and a core exercise. So I know sometimes at first glance that doesn't look like it's really doing much, but it really does take a strong kid to kind of clamp their hands on the beam and then do it with their legs straight and their knees all the way straight. So make sure that you're trying to ask them to get better at it. And if you really have a 7 or 8-year-old who is just so uncomfortable, I would even move the block all the way to the end and just ask them to stand up on the beam and just do a dismount. Because even getting them up there and getting them to stand in that small way, they'll probably want to do it next time. They're just mostly unsure because they haven't done it yet. So give them that chance to get up there and gain some confidence by removing the distance, and just have them stand up and jump if they need to. For weeks 3 and 4, the age 9 and over class, the only real differences from the 7-8 video that I already made are on beam. So on the medium beam, we're introducing bunny hop. So that's the first time their feet are really both leaving the beam at the same time. And then up on the high beam, they're trying the walk backwards and then the dismount. And the difference for their walk backwards is we want to teach them to turn around by doing a pivot turn. So naturally kids will stay on flat feet and kind of step, 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 step in a circle until they get turned around. We want to show them what it looks like to go up to their tiptoes and do that pivot turn, or they recognize the word spin on their feet a little bit more. And those two things would be great things to either have them do while they're standing listening to directions. So say you're having somebody, you are getting up there and kind of showing those, or you're standing right here giving directions and they're all standing right here. Say, could everybody go up on your tiptoes with me and then spin and face the other way? That's called a pivot turn, and that's what we want to do right here on the beam when we get to the end of our backwards walk. and then kind of go up on your tiptoes and show them kind of how to start bouncing their ankles and then make their feet leave. And those are short, quick hops like a bunny, and that's bunny hop. And you could even add that to your warm up. So sometimes like Lanny does it a lot with preschool, or I do it a lot with all the community ed classes I coach, is during warm up, you can throw in that one more thing and say, this is what it's called. And later we get to do this up on the medium beam or up on the high beam. And so then they have some sort of experience trying it as well. So if you feel like you have the time during warm up, feel free to add those passes in or those directions in during that time, so that when you're giving, all 5 stations directions over here, then that gets cut a little shorter because you've already talked about that a little bit.